Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's stream, DDNet After Dark, where we play something that's a little bit more adult in tone. We've done plenty of fan service games in the past, but now we are looking at a more, I guess, mature game in terms of themes. The kind of game that you would expect to be on late night TV, really, if it was a movie, and that is Tokyo Dark Remembrance. This is a horror, noir, crime fiction, adventure game / visual novel, and it is really quite special. So we are going to play this is the second stream. So we played this for the first time last week. We played about an hour of it, got through the introductory chapter, and into the story itself. And this week we are going to continue on with that playthrough, and hopefully start to experience some of the game's revelations, because this game ramps up fast. It's not an overly long game. It only takes about 4 to 5 hours to play through once, but it certainly hits hard, as you're going to see soon enough. So we will give people a moment or two to jump on and say hello, and then we'll get stuck into it. It is not a mediocre game, Dithiram. This game is a masterpiece. This is, without any exaggeration whatsoever, this is one of the top games that I've played this decade, or in the past decade, since we are just into a new decade now. Over the past 10 years, this one really stands out, with only a couple of others, as something that I think is really worthwhile as a games as art kind of thing. So yeah, this one's special to me, and I did want to share it with people, so I'm glad I've had the chance to do the streams. And yeah, I'm looking forward to showing you some more of it this week. So just to give people a summary, if you're watching this on playback afterwards, or if you're on the stream right now and maybe missed the first week, in the first week of Tokyo Dark, we were introduced to the main character, who's this woman that you're seeing on the screen in front of you now. She is a detective, and she had an incident with her partner being offed by somebody that she thought was dead. And then the game did a time jump backwards to a couple of months before that incident, and she is now investigating with her partner events that are happening just outside of Tokyo in a town called Kamakura. That's where we got up to, and yeah, we'll just give people another couple of seconds to jump on, because it is a Friday night. Everybody's got to get their glass of wine ready to go, and we'll get into it. So you have actually been playing this. Oh, okay. So after the stream last week, you picked it up, or did you actually play it beforehand and were just pretending that you hadn't while you're on the stream? Did I actually convince you to give this game a go, did I? Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't want to give anything away, because people who might jump on the stream or watch it on playback might not know anything about this game. But mechanically, it's nothing special. It's not a game that's designed to be a mechanical work. It is more a narrative thing, and that's how I approach it. I really play it just for the story stuff, and the overarching narrative I find to be pretty powerful. And we may get a different ending to that you had while we play this, and you might get a different angle, I guess, on things, and that might adjust your view of it. I can't actually remember what my first ending was when I played this thing. I've had a few of them since, and yeah, each ending really does kind of add to the overall picture, I think. Alright, let's jump into it, shall we? So we're going to continue, and we'll end up in Kamakura straight away, which is where we left off last week. I haven't touched this game in the last week, because that would be pointless. Here we go. Okay, so as you may remember, like I said, we got to Kamakura at the end of last week, And this is Kitakamakura Station, which I was talking about a bit. I was reminiscing about on the stream last week. I love this train station. I've been here a couple of times. It's one of my favorite places in the whole world. I want to retire here. Not because it's particularly spooky in real life. It's actually quite beautiful. But it does have that old-timey Japan feel about it. And it's very kind of a local area. There's not too many buildings. Certainly no high-rises. Even compared to other places in Kamakura, this is a very local area. The train station is gorgeous. There's some lovely temples and shrines and old buildings which are now museums there. And I just can't rave enough about this part of the world. So, Kitakamakura, not North Kamakura, Kitakamakura. Yeah, okay, so here we go. Let's just wander along. So, as you can see, there's cherry blossoms or sakura everywhere. That's actually true of Kitakamakura. It is a beautiful station in part because if you happen to be there where the sakura blossoms are blooming, then it is a gorgeous pink colour that's throughout the entire area. And for people who don't know much about the sakura blossom, they only blossom for about a week. It is a very short period of time that you get a chance to actually look at them in all their glory, and that's why there is a certain mystique about them, and the Japanese revere them so much. It's because they really reflect, I guess, the brevity of life, and they can muse over the need to seize the moment and live life to the max and all that kind of stuff. That's really why this tree is so important to the Japanese. Not only is it beautiful, but it is also quite spiritual. Okay, so we continue on. We don't really need to look any further. Seeing the cherry blossoms. Red markings. Looks like blood, but actually it's paint. Lovely old building. Continue on. There'd be a torii gate there. So, a little bit of trivia, I guess, if you ever find yourself in Japan. Firstly, if you see a torii gate, you are heading towards a shrine, not a temple. The Buddhist temples in Japan don't have torii gates. They mark a Shinto shrine. And just as a bit of etiquette, never walk through the middle of a torii gate, because the middle is where the gods walk, the kami, and humans are meant to walk on either side of the gate. You can go through it, but stay on the side. And over a red bridge. This game makes me want to go back to Japan. Everything about it is just very... It captures the essence, the aesthetics of Japan so well, this game. It's a simple art, I guess. It's not the most complicated visual art that you've ever seen in a video game, but it does convey its feelings quite effectively. I can see something floating in the river with more red markings on it. I need to carefully fish it out so I don't disturb it. Do I want to? I don't think I can. Yeah, story gates can be used for spooky moments as well. There is a certain part of, I guess because they deal so closely with the spirit realm and the gods and all that kind of stuff, they can be easily turned into something that symbolizes horror in the world. But I don't know, I find them all quite benevolent in terms of the real world. Whenever I'm there, I never get a sense that they're particularly spooky. They're generally quite inviting, actually, I find. And we continue on. We go to see some bamboo. Now, see, if I break the... You're not meant to break bamboo shoots. Especially not shoot them. But I need to get that thing. I want to fish that thing out of there, whatever that is. See? By shooting the bamboo, I actually lost some sanity. That's a train pass, as we just got told. Not too much to say about that, really. If I like the train passes when you get the Suica penguin on them. It's almost like a collectible at that point. But Japanese train system is great. Let's find out what that train pass is. Now, this guy, remember, if you watched the stream last week, this guy's a bit of a pain, but he might be useful to us right now. yes, definitely, and it's very bad for the soul to damage bamboo forests. They're spiritual things as well. Definitely don't. I do not recommend, if you ever find yourself in Japan, using a gun to break shoots of bamboo off, because souvenir or not, that's a very naughty way of doing things. Yeah, he's a guy that you just want to punch. I think we mentioned that in the stream last week. There are some interesting characters in this game, and he's certainly interesting, but not in a nice way. I don't mean that in a complimentary manner. Maybe I'm a bit violent. No, it's only a digital person, remember? Anything you do to them is okay. I would never want to punch even a person of this level of irritation in real life. But video games are an outlet for these things. But anyway, irritating or not, he's given us a clue which is pretty useful. So that train pass belongs to the daughter of a particularly important person in the local area, or important family in the local area, and we'll find out plenty more about her. Now, this is the house that they were talking about, and I guess we should try to figure out, what's going on by knocking on the door. Okay, knock on this door. There's nobody home. Oh well, that doesn't help. Can I do it again? Knock again. Oh, by knocking again, I've increased my neurosis. So, just in case anybody watches this and missed the first week, here we go. There are 4 statistics you need to manage. It works a little bit like I guess a dating sim, where the various actions that you take will affect these statistics: sanity, professionalism, investigation skills, and neurosis. Naturally, there are some that you don't want to drop too fast. Sanity, if it drops, is not a good thing for you. and can affect the end result that you get from the game. Investigation, meanwhile, can certainly benefit to you. At the moment, I'm doing pretty well with investigation, and nothing else has dropped too fast, so I'm in a good place right now. Only the best detectives knock on doors, investigation up. Well, yes, especially these days, they don't tend to do any knocking at all. They just crash on through. What was that? It sounded like it came behind me. Ooh. Maybe we could... Ooh, that's spooky. The door's open now. Don't know if I want to go in, but we better. Got to cover all bases. So here's a creepy house. Yes, I mean, I guess you could get some good frame rates out of this on playing it on top settings. So you got your PC, that's good to hear. Is it a good one? Is it working the way that you wanted it to? You don't know, you maybe haven't got that, you might not have that ending just yet. You may have to work towards that one. Oh, okay, right, gotcha. So when do you get it? A couple of weeks? Cool, looking forward to you getting that toy and getting the chance to play around with it. Hopefully it works and does everything that you want it to. I'm sure at that kind of premium price it will definitely play all the games that you want on good settings. You saw yourself. Yeah. So this woman's very hostile right now. Yeah, I would imagine, given the circumstances in the world right now, we probably won't be seeing as many games that glorify cops. You're right on that one. That would be an open invitation to criticize the game, regardless of context, regardless of how it handles the topic. I can only imagine that people won't respond to that very well. So yes, you're probably right. Private detectives. We'll probably see a resurgence of the crime noir genre, where you've got detectives that behave in a way that in a moral way that's kind of guided by their own sense of morality, and that can be questionable. You know, you have the Venetian blinds, the whole black and white kind of the dark and shade and the light, the kind of the very strong moral conflicts within them. I love the noir genre. I think it's great. It's long overdue for a resurgence anyway. So if more private detective stories do that, then so much the better. Mind you, it probably won't come out of Japan. Japan's not quite the same level of hostile towards the police that the West has. They obviously have issues like everywhere else, but it's not quite as hostile, especially compared to America right now. Yeah, like I said, I don't think Japan is they have their issues and they're not, you know, questioningly welcoming of their police, but it's nowhere near as bad as what's going on over in America, and the protests are nowhere near to the same extent. So that's it's like I said, it's not quite as bad. And yeah, The Big Sleep is a great book and film. Raymond Chandler, classic noir. Humphrey Bogart is in The Big Sleep and various other films as well. Good genre. So, what you just saw there. No, I did not meet old Koala Woman personally. I also didn't come back from Kitakamakura with a creepy mask like that. But yeah, that mask is pretty important. It was given to her, not that she necessarily wants it, but it did. And just by looking at it, she started to see her sanity slip away. So you can tell that that's going to be an important motif throughout the game, whatever that mask means. It's a little bit mysterious now, but I'm sure we will find out as we play along. And after giving that gift, she's apologizing, so we know that it's definitely not a good thing. Definitely not a good thing. As soon as I touched it, it was like as if the lens through which I viewed the world was jarred out of focus. Once again, a very noirish line. Every time you see the red text, red box appear down the bottom, you can be sure that something noirish is going to come. And those are the little bits that you should pay most attention to when you're following along with the narrative. Confessions of a Mask. Yes, Blade Runner. See, now that line right there, that is vintage noir. After a few lungfuls of the spring air, my headache subsided and the nausea lessened. That could have been taken straight out of a Chandler book. The thing with the noir genre was it was never literature. It was never kind of Shakespearean in the quality of the construction of the words. They were all very pulpy. It was a very pulp genre, and that kind of... It was hard-hitting. It was quite dark, and the descriptions were quite vivid. It was a good genre. It's a real pity that it has pretty much died. We don't see many examples of it at all. We see a couple of kind of neo-noir efforts which try to modernize it or combine it with things like science fiction, like Blade Runner, as you mentioned there. But yeah, the old kind of core of the genre is pretty much dead. Well, I mean, Chandler's kind of the top guy. You mentioned him as the kind of the founding father and the head honcho of the noir genre. So, of course, everything else kind of compares poorly to him. But, you know, once again, I think that this game does a good job of capturing the essence of it. Tonally, it's accurate. It's certainly a creative vision, so... So there we go. Now we're going to have to run to the shrine because someone was screaming out here. Let's see what this is about. Uh-oh. So that line there, I guess I need to fill that one in for people who missed the first stream and might watch this on playback later on down the track. Reina is the character that was introduced in the first part of the game before the flashback, and she's the one with the red hair who's the one holding the knife to the other girl's throat. She's the one who's supposedly dead. And somehow comes back from the grave to kill the partner, who's the guy in the middle of the screen. None of that's a spoiler. That was all introduced in the introduction of the game, so I'm not really spoiling anything. I'm just filling you in. That's the situation we're in. Or play an American cop and shoot as soon as you can. There's an interesting play. You can do that in this game. You can just shoot. There are moments where you get the chance to do just that. Okay. So we've got a pretty tense hostage situation going here. So I decided to do the right thing, not draw my gun. Well, I meant you're meant to care about him on principle because, you know, you do have that introductory scene where we see the photo of them with a cat, and you get the sense that they've got a very kind of happy home life together. That's the point, I guess. You're just meant to assume that you're meant to care about this character and do so. He's not an important character. For me, this game is not about the emotional connection that you form to any of the characters. It's more about what this game actually symbolizes, what it means, what it is, what it's telling you. You know, it's more an intellectual exercise, and I think that the themes of this game are pretty potent and pretty important. I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about some of those in the course of this particular stream, but I'm sure we will in the weeks ahead. There we go, we've got a bit of a disassociative moment here. You know, where you're looking down at yourself doing things and not really associating yourself with what you're doing. That's always good fun. That's a good sign of somebody's mental state. Well, I don't really have a choice here now, do I? The clock is not really ticking down anymore, and I'm given 4 options that are all the same. What should I do? Maybe this one? Up, left, down, north, east, south, west. Let's go with west. My sanity's taking a dive here. That's a pretty dark little thing to say there. Unfortunately, it's not the Nurse Love Addiction Nurse. That would be a great crossover. Tokyo Dark cross Nurse Love Addiction. There we go. That would be a masterpiece in the making. Amy could become a cop. I say that now, and everybody who enjoyed Nurse Love Addiction or whatever will get mad at me now. I knew you'd respond that way. Yeah, I don't think Amy's got it in her to be a cop, to be honest. Okay, so we've got a little bit of control back. We need to make a couple of decisions here. Due to the trauma of shooting Reina, she had a mental break of sorts and ended up in hospital, pretty comatose for a while. And now I need to... What am I going to do? I'm going to show concern for May. Even in hospital, gotta have the police hat on, do the investigation thing right. This nurse has not been helpful, so let's let's keep annoying the nurse. Things from Kamakura aren't important right now. Please just focus on your recovery and your symptoms. Kamakura is always the most important thing. Nurse could call that. No, see, the way I'm playing it, the cop's the one doing the good stuff, and the nurse has just been a dogmatic wall where she's not actually giving me the information, and therefore is inhibiting my ability to uncover the truth, all because her professional career means that she can't break the rules, which is bad. So I'm making the nurse a bad person by these answers, you know. And that's why I'm getting rewarded with bonus points to my investigating ability. No, but see, the point is, right now, my mental faculty is clearly back. So, you know, these yes or no questions aren't really helping anybody. They're not helping me get to the bottom of what is obviously concerning me, and they're not really helping you get the answers that you're looking for, because you kind of already know them. I'm back pretty healthy, so, you know. Let's keep asking the questions. See, I'm getting this really strong, oh, what's the name of the film? I can't even remember the name of the film now. The one where right at the end the guy throws the kitchen sink through the window and escapes because the nurse is just not listening to anybody, and they're all treating the patients really badly. It's an old film. Jack Nicholson. Mental blank, that's terrible. It's a great film. Anyway, point of that was the nurses in that film were very bad people, and the patients were the ones that were being mistreated, and this seems to be the case here as well. I'm perfectly fine. Refusing to answer questions is pretty unprofessional. I don't know if nurses are meant to or not. I can't remember. Well, I can't remember. I've never done nursing, so I don't know how they're meant to respond if a patient isn't cooperative with the questions that they're being asked and ask other questions instead. But I would assume that a nurse could just, you know, answer them. One flew over the detective's murder. That's the one. That's right. One flew out of the cuckoo's nest. What a great film. I'm not sure if a nurse can actually just diagnose a patient either. I would imagine that, especially when it comes to mental illness, you kind of need a doctor to do that. A nurse, it's kind of beyond the nurse's remit. At least that's as far as I understand from Nurse Love Addiction, which is about the only thing I've ever actually really studied that involves nurses as the characters. Anyway, this is nitpicking about a conversation in the game, which is not really about the interaction between a nurse and a detective. Sorry about that to everybody else who's listening. Whoa, look at my sanity, it's really dived. That incident with the mask and then the girl and all that didn't really go well for me, unfortunately. And now, for whatever reason, they're actually trying to integrate the game's mechanics into the narrative, and yeah, the one weakness of this game. Like I said right at the start of the stream, the mechanics of this game are not really relevant to why I like it so much. So let's just skip past all of this. Ooh, do I take the pill? Do I take the pill? See, if I swallow the pill, I can imagine that I'm like the detective version of Dr. House and become a drug addict who happens to be overwhelmingly competent at my job. Or I could refuse it and then become like the cuckoo's nest. And no, I'm going to swallow. I'm going to be the Dr. House, Detective Dr. House. Lose some investigative ability, but improve my sanity. That should not work. I mean, if it was really going to be the Dr. House of detectives, it would be improve the sanity, I guess, but lose the professionalism. Because I'm pretty sure Dr. House's professionalism would be like minus 100. I love that show. Oh, sorry, I saw your comment too late. Sorry. I'll definitely listen to you next time that I have to make a decision that's so hard-hitting as taking the drugs. Anyway, so now I'm on drugs, which is good, I guess. So once again, this long-winded conversation, which really it just gets in the way of the rest of the narrative and the stuff I want to get into, it basically just explains how you can manipulate the 4 statistics there. No, I don't want you to explain it again. And basically, I just need to try and make sure that the 2 negative statistics, which is sanity and neurosis, don't increase, and I take my medicine and hang out with my cat in order to improve those, while I focus on the 2 positive mechanics, professionalism and investigative ability. No, I know it's not really what neurotic means, but once again, this game's not about the mechanics. Just ignore all the mechanics stuff. Which I know it's hard when I've just spent the last 10 minutes cycling through this long-winded instruction tutorial about how to mess with the mechanics, but we're back on track with the narrative now. You can be professional and unemployed. Those things aren't necessarily, exclusive. A lot of very professional people are unemployed right now. you sympathize with Reina or Ito? Because, I mean, if you've played this game through a couple of times, you should know where the game's sympathies lie. And I don't know if I want to give too many spoilers away so early in case other people haven't got up to those bits yet. But, yeah, this game is certainly not what it seems on the surface. I like her too. We'll get there. So, yeah, so after all of that, where were we? The policewoman Ito shot Reina in Kamakura, and now we are fast forwarding back, and that's very creepy. This is now, as in the time right now. So remember, all of that was a flashback. Ito was remembering how Reina got killed and wondering how she ended up in meeting Reina again in the sewers, and then Reina cuts the throat of her partner, and as we just saw then, he was wearing the mask. So all very creepy stuff. And now we have to, we're back in our apartment. So let's play with the cat first. Do I want to take a pill? Let's have a look at the laptop. See what it's got to tell me. That would be cruel. An option to kill the cat. I mean, this is a highly sympathetic cat. I would hate to have that option even as an option. But you are right, I guess, if you wanted to throw that in as an option when the sanity declined that far. The press will simplify any story to sell papers, just like Kazuki always said. She's obviously reading some of the Murdoch press. I don't know why she'd have the Murdoch press open. Mind you, she did say that was all laid out very factually, and I don't think the Murdoch press qualifies as reporting on anything factual. Oops, I didn't actually mean to do that. Oh well, looks like I'm taking some medicine. Alright, let's do that. Improve my sanity a bit anyway. I think mass media is viewed with disdain by most people in general, but yes, the Japanese aren't big fans of their mass media either. I can confirm that. Being married to one, she's not exactly a big fan of the mass media. One sympathises based on what little I've read of it. Okay, so let's have a snooze. Obviously this is a pretty emotional moment because not that I've ever experienced it, and hopefully won't for a very long time if ever. But yeah, it mustn't be easy to sleep in a bed when the partner's gone. Like gone. That's very dark. But then this is the game. I mean, being a journalist and having worked in media environments, I can say that nothing that people assume is deliberate about journalists apply to most of them. Most of them just want to get the stories done and hit their KPIs, which are ridiculous and ever increasing. These days, you have to write so many stories; it's ridiculous. You don't really have really have the time to think about pushing an ideological bent. But the way that media itself is constructed ends up meaning that you do that. Even if it's not deliberate. So, yeah, I think that people who single out the journalists for a lot of blame, and I'm not talking about the high-profile opinion piece ones that are obvious ideological warriors, but the typical journalist isn't really somebody that should be singled out for what their publication stands for. It's a difficult thing. I mean, most of them are just people who want to get a job done and do their news and go home. But yeah, just the construction of the media makes it very difficult to give the people the kind of the what they actually need rather than what their bosses want. Well, see, that's the thing. They're not forced to... Sorry, to anybody else listening on the stream, I'm just responding to the comments that I hear about the conversation about journalists. Journalists are not forced to write particular stories. They just have a mandate that they need to write a certain number of stories. And that mandate basically means that they don't get time to think about what they're necessarily writing. When you have to write 5 or 6 stories in a day, you kind of just throw together what's thrown in front of you, and you don't really put the thought into it that it perhaps deserves, let alone a chance to think about, I guess, the overall strategy of what you want to report about, which becomes very difficult, and that is entirely structural. There are a lot of journalists that are just stuck, that they just don't have control over the work they do, and as a result, you know, by the time the stories come out, people accuse them of pushing a particular bias or whatever, which is just not true. They're not typically doing that. Again, except for the columnists that are paid ridiculous amounts of money just to write one piece a week, and every country has those. But the typical journalist doesn't necessarily get a chance to do the journalism that they want to, and that is just a structural thing. So all I'm suggesting is that we, the working journalists, the non-columnists, the non-opinion people, we just be aware that the working conditions don't necessarily mean that they're doing what people think they're doing. Again, that's just my perspective, having done the journalism beat before, being an editor and all that stuff. It's a tough gig. Oh, Yumi's back. Ever helpful Yumi. Secretly the killer of everybody. You'll all remember she came across as a little bit creepy last week in the stream. A little bit over-eager to be a good neighbour, let's put it that way. And as everybody knows, if a neighbour's being over-eager, that's always a red flag to get the hell out of that apartment block, and hopefully, if you can, move cross-state, if not internationally. Never allow a helpful neighbour to learn your name. It's always scary when they do. See, she even calls you a neighbour there. Every time I say something about her being a nasty neighbour, she ends up saying something that affirms exactly what I've said just immediately afterwards. Spelt wrong, though. There should be a U in there. What I will say about Yumi is that she has great taste in clothing. Mrs. Donut is great. Obvious reference to Mr. Donut, which is the best donut chain / donut producer I've ever had. I love Mr. Donut. One of the things I always look forward to when I go to Japan is having some Mr. Donut donuts. Unfortunately, Mr. Donut is struggling. Like many other chains, people seem to think that the Mr. Donut donuts are too expensive, and yeah, it's unfortunate. Anyway, moving on. Oh. Okay, so that's certainly something to remember, everybody who's on the stream and maybe tuning in down the track for the next week or two, because I will definitely be streaming this again next week as well. Those earthquakes mean something. I mean, Japan gets a lot of earthquakes, but as you can probably guess if you've ever done any kind of literature or cinema analysis or studies or whatever you want to call them at university level, if not high school level, earthquakes symbolically never mean anything good to a person's psyche, which is obviously what this one's about. And the cracks in the wall are symbolic. You can see one right there in the middle. This is all very symbolic stuff, so keep that in mind. There was a great film, just to go on a quick digression, there was a really great film, and I hate to say this because I know this name is going to set people off, perhaps. There was a great film by a fella called Roman Polanski, and I say that having watched this film before finding out about what Roman Polanski is. But Roman Polanski is a great filmmaker for all his many very grievous faults outside of his filmmaking ability. And he made this film which is really about a descent into madness. It was one of his earlier films. It's in black and white and stuff. I think it's called Compulsion? Possibly Compulsion. Anyway, it makes great use of this motif of cracking walls and earthquakes and stuff. And it's a very intense film. Very, very much worth watching if you're into cinema theory and the kind of the artistic side of cinema. It's one of those that you kind of have to watch. This game roughly riffs on it, actually. It's pretty impressive. I would imagine that the people who made this game probably saw that film and kind of noted it away in memory for future use in their own games. Yeah, it's no different from anywhere else in Hollywood. Yeah, very, very good. Yes, that obviously doesn't mean we should not reference it, because people who obviously watch Polanski films need to know who Polanski is. The artist versus the work of art and all that. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that. I actually do happen to be a fan of Polanski's films as a whole, and it makes me very uncomfortable to kind of say that and implicitly support his filmmaking, because I don't want to support who he was. But yeah, that's another conversation for another day. Point was, there was a film that he made which had cracking walls and earthquakes and stuff, and this game actually reminds me of that. It's okay, your pirately stuff. Yeah, I haven't bought a Polanski film in a long time. I studied him a lot at university because I did do film studies, and I found his aesthetic quite suitable for what I was studying at the time. And I did buy his collections on DVD back, again, before I knew enough about him as a person to find him very uncomfortable. But yeah, I haven't bought a film of his. I haven't really watched any of his films for a long time either. But he has got a great library of films, and it's one of those ones where you should be deeply uncomfortable with who Roman Polanski is for obvious reasons, but at the same time, you should be aware of his films. Not that you have to support them, you can pirate them, which is fine with him, but as art, you know, he's not the first artist to be a very difficult person to want to support. He won't be the last. They've got to remind you. They've got to remind you that, you know, they've got to make it obvious so you tune into it.
Hey.
Okay, so I actually have a plan that I want to do another stream tonight because I kind of want to show off Clubhouse games. As I've been playing this, I've been seeing a whole bunch of people pop up on my screen as playing Clubhouse games, and I want to join in and play some Hanafuda. So I'm actually going to do another stream tonight, but we will call a halt to this stream simply because this is a good spot to stop. We had a pretty intense moment. We've been called into the police station, so now we need to meet our boss and, you know, start to, I guess, try to get life back on track after all the dramatic happenings. And yeah, this over the next hour or so, which we will play next week. This goes places again, and the game really starts to open up, and we start to explore different parts of Japan, and that's when it gets interesting, and we'll have a lot to talk about then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this stream just so we can cut it off, and then we can start a fresh stream with the next game. Please do stick around, especially you, Dithyram. You might actually be the only one on right now. It says there's a couple of people on, but you might be the only one. Stick around, we'll come back. I'll have a new link up on the Twitter, and we'll play Clubhouse games and talk about other stuff while we play Hanafuda. So be back soon. For everybody else, please do consider tuning in if you watch this between now and tomorrow morning. We'll be playing more Tokyo Xanadu in the morning at about 10 a.m. Australian time. That's a good JRPG. Plenty of stuff to talk about there. Very likable Persona clone. Otherwise, Sunday we also have a stream. And yeah, if you tune into this later on after in a playback, hope you enjoy it, and I hope we see you next week as we stream live. We'll be back soon.